So it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful to the organizers of this program, which I know it's an effort that is contributing to ensuring that we have accountable institutions which will be responsible for delivering good governance and then ensuring that public finance will work for the common man or the common men in Nigeria. And that's the essence of today. And for me, it's a call and it's a service to the country to ensure that citizens are empowered to contribute to the process of governance, because good governance alone cannot be delivered by the government or the government institutions if the citizens are not part of it. Because most times when they make decisions, they will make decisions that will favor them, not looking at the citizens. But when we have people who participate in these processes, you will be able to have a system that ensures that everybody's concerns, needs, and aspirations are taken into considerations when decisions are being made. So my job this afternoon is to speak on the topic, tools and techniques for monitoring institutional accountability. So if I'm to start, I will ask all of us that what are tools or what are techniques? Can anybody have an idea or share an idea or what they understand by what is called a tool? And then as well, the what techniques are or what they understand by the word technique so that we can move forward. Anybody?
So can I give it a try, please?
Just say
Can you hear
whatever
me?
you know about a tool or a technique. Yeah, I can hear you,
Okay.
Adebayo.
Okay. So for me, I believe tools are equipment used to carry out a task, while techniques are methods of carrying out a task, or ways of carrying out a task. You can have different tools for carrying out a task, and you can have multiple techniques for carrying out a task. So it's depends on what you want to use. But tools basically are just equipment, probably machinery, in terms of engineering, machinery used to carry out some things. But in terms of techniques, are just method of carrying out a task.
Okay. Thank you, Adebayo. So I agree with your definitions of a tool, of what a tool is, and then what techniques it can be defined as. I understand and I agree with your. Now, so the application of that, of what you just said, is that we will apply that into governance, into accountability, and system of democracy that we run in order to have good governance in our country. So, like he said, tools are what you can use to what? Achieve a particular task or a particular purpose or getting something done. So when you apply that to the governance process, all our democracy in general, you can say a tool in the democracy angle is what you use to what? Or what you apply to achieve good governance and a functional democracy. So, before I go further, the objective or what is expected from this presentation is that participants will understand the overview of how to use digital platform and open data sources, reporting and documenting findings effectively, engage in political communication and advocacy by understanding monetary tools and techniques. The objective is that I want to equip you with the practical tools and techniques that we can use to monitor public institutions, and then teach you on how to utilize digital platforms as well as open sources for transparency. And then you gain new skills in effective reporting and documentation of findings for advocacy. It's expected that at the end of this section, you would have gained new knowledge of various monitoring tools and techniques in democracy, and then you would have also be gain new skills in using digital tools and open source for monitoring, as well as you also understand the importance of political communication and advocacy in promoting institutional or general accountability in governance. So let's go now. So I will ask, what are tools, what are techniques, what is monitoring, and then what is institutional accountability? So the first thing that we want to look at is, what are tools for governance monitoring? Now, so if you are familiar with Oxford Dictionary, it defines a tool as a device or implement, especially one that you can hold in your hand, used to carry out a particular function. They call it a gardening tool. So, but in governance, tools are simply designed to be used by stakeholders to carry on the business of governance and democracy activities. Should I say that again? In public governance, tools are simply designed to be used by stakeholders to carry on the business of governance and democratic activities. So governance tools that we need to understand now includes laws, policies, constitution, court judgment, the institutions themselves, white papers of government, budget, code of conduct rules, then platforms, and then reports. These are tools that you can use to monitor governance. So let me discuss each of these tools that I've mentioned, one after the other. Now, we have laws. In a democracy, the rule of law is the hallmark of democratic governance. So if you want to monitor governance in a certain perspective of ensuring that it delivers good governance to the people, you need to use the tool, the law, as a tool. And these laws comes in various forms. The Constitution, for instance, is a law. And when you look at the institutions where we want to also monitor accountability, they also operate according to the Establishment Acts. The Establishment Acts are the laws that the National Assembly made to establish such institutions. So if you want to monitor what the institution is doing, you have to arm yourself with what? With the knowledge of the law, in terms of provisions, in terms of processes, in terms of modus operandi that are available according to the law. So in democracy, if you don't want to run into troubles when you are advocating, when you are monitoring governance process, what you need to arm yourself with is the law. You must be, even though you are not a lawyer, you must know what a certain aspect of the law is saying concerning a particular issue, concerning a particular institution. Then we move to policy. Policies are creations of the law. For instance, a certain law will say the government can do this, can do that, can do that. And at the end of the day, to be able to do that thing, the government needs to come up with a policy. the government or the institution also need to come up with what? A certain policy to be able to implement the letters or the provisions of the law. We have seen this in our constitution where the government will need to constitute certain committee, for instance. That committee is backed by the constitution, while the operations of that committee is backed by policies of government. We move to court judgment. Court judgment is another form of policy or another set of law. When court make judgment on a certain matter, it becomes a reference point that can be used as a law. So if you want to advocate for a particular thing in a governance process, if there is no law that talks about that issue, certainly there should be a policy that talks or discuss the issue that you are trying to work on, or there should be a court judgment that has made certain pronouncement concerning the issue. So for you as an advocate of democracy, as an advocate of good governance, what you need to do is to have the understanding of that law or that policy or that constitution or that court judgment for you to be able to ask for accountability in that direction. For instance, budget is another law. We call it appropriation law when it is passed by the National Assembly or the State Assembly or the local government council assembly. So it becomes a law. And that document, when you lay your hands on that document and begin to bring out information and data from the budget, it becomes you using the letters of the law to advocate for accountability. So when you want to monitor governance, you need to understand how these tools can be used. And the best way for you is to have the understanding by looking for that particular law or policy or constitution or court judgment or budget or code of conduct rules that tends towards that particular issue and explore the provisions that are made in that particular document for you to be used what? As a governance monitoring tool. When you are using or leveraging these form of tools, you have a very good tool in your hand that you can use to call for accountability in our governance process. Now, I will go to the next one, which is technique. What's a technique? Oxford Dictionary as well defines technique as a way of carrying out a particular task, especially the execution or performance of an artistic work or a scientific procedure. In a democracy, it refers to the ways being implemented to get things done, and then stakeholders involving in that process. So, for instance, civic engagement and participation are important techniques that you can use to ensure good governance. And what is civic participation or civic engagement? Civic engagement has to do with activities around issues of governance, issues of elections, issues of policies, issues of lawmaking in a particular community. If you have any issues around these areas that I've mentioned that has to do with the community where you live, with the state where you live, or that local government where you live, or a country where you live, all of this has become a techniques where you can use to engage the democratic process in terms of you now leveraging, you are leveraging this technique to now make use of that tool that I discussed earlier. You are leveraging civic engagement, for instance, to promote the content or the provisions that are available in the Constitution or a certain policy or the budget of government. So the techniques, which is civic engagement, is what you will now use as a platform where you can promote the content using the tools that we have discussed earlier. Are we together? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I move forward. The next is techniques for citizens involvement in governance. These strategies include what I've just discussed about civic engagement. Then you can also have advocacy. You can have communities meetings, such as town hall meetings, stakeholders meetings, and then follow-ups with authority, as well as communities taking ownership of public projects or participating in government annual budgeting system or framework to ensure that the citizens in a particular location or in a particular communities can advocate for the issues of their community in a government budget, for instance. And these techniques that you require is what could be termed advocacy, what could be termed as community town hall meetings, or civic engagement that I've discussed. So technique, like the topics of today's says, tools and techniques, and I've been able, since we started this section, talk about what the tools are and then what the techniques are also, in order to get citizens to participate in the governance process. If you don't participate, you cannot be talking about monitoring accountability. It is your participation that will guarantee that you have tools and techniques for you to what? Advocate for accountability. Let's move forward. So now we move from what are tools, and then what are techniques, and then we are moving to monitoring. What is monitoring? Monitoring is a systematic process of collecting, analyzing, and using information to track programs' progress towards reaching its objectives and to guide management decisions. Monitoring usually focuses on processes such as when and where activities occur, who delivers them, and how many people or entities they reach in terms of implementing that particular project. So let's use this monitoring now to look at a particular government project in your community. So when you want to monitor a project, you are looking at you collecting information or data. And then when you have the information or the data, you analyze, are these data or information in line with what you have in the budget? The budget has now become a tool for you to track the project. So you analyze this information. Is it in line with what the government says they will do in the budget? When you now have this information and you have your analysis ready, you can now make a judgment whether government has been able to achieve what they set out to achieve in the budget or not. So if they have not, you now have a reason to what? engage in advocacy, you engage in community town hall meeting, you engage in letter writing to such authorities that are expected or that is expected to deliver such a project to your community. When you do that, you've already started monitoring government activities, which is essential to accountability. And the impact of that, or the importance of that, is when you take such actions. For instance, if government has decided that that primary healthcare center in your community has been completed, but on paper, but you are now writing, or a group of youth or women in your community are now writing to the to the state primary healthcare board, for instance, that this particular PHC in our community has been abandoned, and the government is now taking action through the state primary healthcare board to complete that particular project that has been abandoned. You now have made significant effort in ensuring that the funds and the money that were allocated to the completion or for the completion of that PAC is being put into the right use. But if you have failed, or you decided not to intervene, or you decided not to participate, or you decided not to monitor, that project would have remained in the state of abandonment, and the money will still be spent, maybe diverted by the politicians in charge, or the civil servant, or the contractor that got the project. So the essence of monitoring is to keep government or the institution or government agency in check by collecting information, analyzing the information, and then using the information that you analyzed to engage in advocacy of holding people in charge to account. Now, we move to what is institutional accountability. So are we borrowing from the UNDP, United Nations Development Program? They say governance is defined as a system of values, policies, institutions by which a society manages its economic, political, social affairs through interaction within and among the state, civil society organizations, citizens, and the private sector. It is the way a society organizes itself and implements decisions, achieving mutual understanding, agreement, and actions. This is anchored on a six principle: participation, inclusion, non-discrimination, equity, rule of law, and accountability. Now, I went ahead to define these according to the UNDP because we need to understand what institution is all about before we go ahead and understand why institutions need to be accountable. So now, we have heard that institutions operate based on 6 key principles, which again, I said, involve participation, inclusion, non-discrimination, equity or equality, and rule of law, as well as accountability. So from this, you will know that accountability is just one principle that is involved in institutional accountability that we are talking about today. So for the accountability to happen in institutions of government, there is need for participation, there is need for inclusion, there is need to ensure that discrimination does not happen, and then looking at the angle of equality, leveraging rule of law as a tool to achieve accountability. Now, let me make it clear that participation inclusion, non-discrimination, equality, rule of law, or the application of the rule of law will not automatically happen or will not be automatically done by the government's institutions. It is the citizens that are responsible to ensure that they advocate for their participation, inclusion in the activities of those institutions of government. It is when you now have all of this in place that accountability will begin to take place. For instance, like I cited the example of a primary healthcare program or project in your community. If you don't participate and you feel that it does not, you will say that the contractor, the government agency put together, and then maybe, for instance, do a substandard project that uh, that is lower than what is put into the budget, and at the end of the day, the rest of what is released to implement the project will go into private pocket. But if accountability wants to be part of the process, there is need for strong participation, inclusion from the citizens. And that is why we are here today, for you to understand how to ensure your own participation, inclusion, and that the people in charge does not discriminate you. So how do you go about that? We have discussed this in the time when I was talking about the tools and the technique. If you look at the law that set up some of these agencies of government that we are talking about, there are elements that talks about carrying citizens along. There are elements that talks about inclusion of the stakeholders. There are elements to be accountable to the people. But if you are not aware of those provisions, how are you going to call for accountability? So this is why your own participation is important, and then leveraging the tools and the techniques that we have discussed earlier for you to hold institutions accountable. Now, in our work environment, so sorry, the network is something else today. So on institution accountability. So I am saying that in our work environment, we define social accountability as an organized citizens and civil society-led initiative to hold public officials and institutions accountable for how public funds are being budgeted, and then what they are being budgeted for, and how they are being utilized to deliver public projects to what? Improve service delivery. When you are calling for institutional accountability, what you are trying to achieve is what? It's improved service delivery to the citizens. And that is the hallmark of governance. That is the hallmark of democracy. So we have, at this level, I expected that all of us on this call have understood the techniques and the tools that we need to drive social accountability and institutional accountability at our different levels. So this will take us to open data. The demand for more government accountability and transparency are growing across the world. And this is because citizens are now taking initiatives that is calling on government agencies to be more accountable. And this is where open data comes in. Open data is a powerful tool for bridging gaps between institutions and communities. And this talks about the work that we do at PROMAT. If open data is used correctly, it can help to build responsive institutions and efficient public services, and also ensure that citizens participate in the process. When institutions of government or public institutions become responsive and efficient in delivering public services, that state can be defined or called the state of accountability and efficiency, which this section is all about. So we need to understand that open data is very important in working for institutional accountability. So now, in Nigeria, we have some open data initiatives that citizens and civil society organizations have developed over the years. And I'm sure that we might have heard Follow the Project. It's been done by PROMAT Foundation. Then we have Tracker by Budget. And then we have Follow the Money by Code, Connected Development. So let me take them one after the other. What we do with Follow the Project is that we use the tools that are available in terms of the budget performance reports published by government to hold government accountable in project implementation across the country. And for us, Follow the Project started in 2019 when we were able to look at what can we do in terms of fast-tracking improved service delivery and then exposing corruption in the implementation of public projects by government agencies and contractors. That was what led us to developing the Follow the Project as an initiative, and we have been tracking government projects around communities in Nigeria. And one of our success that we have recorded over the year is in NDDC projects that have been abandoned in Ondo State. And when we were able to track some of these projects, relate with communities that are involved, and then publish our findings using our platforms, we were invited by the House of Representatives to come and defend some of the things that we have found. And our defense and advocacy led them to compel some of the contractors that were involved in those projects to go back to site and complete those projects. And today, the primary healthcare center that were completed, the road project, the school project that were completed are being now used by the communities and citizens that reside in those communities. For us, this is a level of institutional accountability. For instance, first, it ensures that our findings compel the House of Representatives to act. And then this led to them compelling contractors to also act. And what did we use? We leverage open data sources. We leverage our own open data initiative as well. Used advocacy as a technique that led to these improvement and the completion of those projects that were tracked. The same principle also being leveraged by Tracker and Budget. And they have tracked numerous projects across the country And these have also led to government intervention in those communities where they were. The same thing applicable to um, uh, follow the money by code. So I'm trying to make these examples for you to be familiar with what open data is and how you can leverage open data to what? To sustain your advocacy with government agencies or government institutions in order for you to arrive at what? Improving service delivery in your communities. When you look at these platforms that I've mentioned, you go to Facebook, you go to X or Instagram to look at them and the data that they are showing out in terms of projects around communities in the country. When you lay hold on they are being putting out there, leveraging open data for you to achieve the purpose of institutional accountability in your community. For us, we've started publishing open data on the 2024 constituency project selected by lawmakers across the country. That's an open data that you can leverage on in you asking for accountability from the lawmakers that are from your state in terms of implementing the 2024 constituency project. So open data, they basically exist to empower citizens to demand accountability from their leaders, from government agencies. And you could also find open data on the website of Budget Office of the Federation and even Budget Office of the states. So in your state, though not all states are publishing their budget data, but some of the states does. So when they publish those data, it becomes open data that you can use to advance your advocacy. And when you are talking, it means you are talking from the point of data that is credible, relevant, and what? And accessible to all. So nobody or no government agency can deny such data when you make use of them. So digital platforms are tools for monitoring accountability in public governance. The hallmark of public accountability is the opportunity it creates or provides for citizens to deploy their constitutional right to participate in decision-making processes and the development of their communities. So shape decision-making process like we currently have. The protest is ongoing, whether you like it or not, or no matter how you feel that it is inappropriate, the government is taking some notes of what is coming out from that protest. And even before the protest today, you have also seen some efforts that the government of Tinubu has made as a result of the planned protest. So you may think that when you protest, you don't achieve 100% of what you are looking for in government. Even if it is 10% that you were able to achieve, you have achieved something. That is better than when nobody is saying anything. And that will come to the level of advocacy that you do in your community. That will come to the level of that letter that you were able to put your group together to write to an agency of government to demand for particular things, to make some changes. When those things take place, even if it is 2% success that you achieve, you have done something which is contributing to a better Nigeria than when you take no actions at all. So I want us to understand that the X, the Facebook, the Instagram of this world, and all that platform that you can think of are powerful platforms that can help you or your community to advance the call for institutional accountability in Nigeria. When some of these things goes out and your data is credible, genuine, relevant, government agencies that are concerned with such content that goes out will be much more careful the next time they want to make a decision that regards those issues that you have pointed out. And this is the way digital platforms helps us to monitor accountability in public governance and then give the citizen the power to contribute into what the government is doing. You might think, oh, you have not been able to achieve the high levels of success, or when we have been doing all of this over the years, why is Nigeria still where it is? The fact is that if all of us have refused to do nothing over the years, it means the current situation would have been worse than what we are currently seeing. So for us to shape the future, we must use these tools available to us to what? Contribute to shaping governance and decision-making process in Nigeria to ensure that the public funds work for the people at the grassroots levels where you and I live our daily lives every day. So developing skills for reporting and documentation. Now, all of us are not journalists. We are not, we didn't study, not maybe some people study mass comm here, but in the business of advocacy or asking for accountability, you are expected to be able to what? Report whatever you want to put out there accurately. So there is need for you to also manage your content effectively. And for you to be able to do this, you need to understand that when you are putting out content for reporting, you need to take into cognizance what we call the principle of where, when, why, who, and how. All of this must be stricted, or must be your tweet or your content must be able to explain this. For instance, you cannot be telling me that you are tracking a project in your community and you want to report it, and you are now saying this project cost 1 billion naira, and then it has been abandoned. You are not telling me the location of where it is. You are not telling me who is the contractor that is handling the project. You are not telling me the government agency that is involved. You are not telling me where you see or where you got that data of the project that help you to be able to mention that the project worth 1 billion naira. So all of these are required in your advocacy. You must ensure that you report accurately. And what I'm trying to say in essence is that when your report contains where, when, why, who, and how, your report is accurate and nobody can come and guess you to say you have not done the right thing. Then in you trying to do accurate reporting in these days, you need skills on the use of smartphones, laptops, and Google Drive. And then you also need to understand simple data collection and analysis. This will help you in terms of you having the skills to make accurate reporting and then documentation of your advocacy. For instance, if you have gathered some content in terms of picture, in terms of video, or budget document or budget data, and then you want to ensure that you have published it, and when maybe for instance, the agency is now calling you to come and explain, you should be able to have the accurate sources of how you got to have this content that you have put out there. So, and the best way to do that is to ensure that from day one, you have accurate documentation of your processes. And for us, or for the purpose of this section, how many of us know Google Drive? Can I have answers? How many of us know Google Drive and how to use it? Anybody? Hello, are you with me?
We are with you, sir.
Okay. How many of you knows Google Drive and you've used it before?
I think I know about it, and I'm currently using one.
Okay. All right. So I singularly mentioned Google Drive because Google Drive is a cloud platform that can help you sustainably in terms of your documentation. And Google Drive, it does not require you to have a special subscription or a special registration or special payment for you to use it. Once you have a Gmail account, there is there, there, there is a Google Drive that automatically belongs to your account, and you can make use of it to keep sensitive advocacy document, so that when you need such document, or when an agency of government has called you to come and explain, you will not be saying, I've changed my phone, I don't have the document again, or I've done this, so the importance of you having this online platform or cloud platform is to ensure that even though you change your laptop, even though you change your phone, once you have put it on your Google Drive and you are able to log in back to your Gmail account, you will always have access to your Google Drive and the document that you have put into the folder in your Google Drive. So it's essential for advocacy effort. It's also essential when you are demanding accountability with government agencies. If you, for instance, you are asking ProMat now for some of the Freedom of Information letter we've written since 2019, we can proudly go to our archive in Google Drive and bring them out for anyone to see. Even if it will take us to court, you will have this a document for you to use in such manner. So what I'm driving is that skills for reporting and documentation are essential in you understanding where, when, why, who, and what, and how. And then your ability to make use of smartphones, laptops, cloud saving platforms like Google Drive, and then your understanding to have simple data collection and analysis and knowledge are of importance when you want to have an effective reporting and documentation for advocacy. So we move. I think this should be the last slide for this session. Political communication and advocacy. Political communication and advocacy require exactness. Please let that sink into your brain. Exactness, truthfulness, and passing the message to make the desired change or impact. You are not communicating your advocacy effort to deceive people. You are not communicating your advocacy effort to cause troubles. What you are communicating is to ensure that there is change or impact that you want to happen to your community. So for that to happen, you need exactness. Exactness means that the situation is the way as you've described it. You've not added another color to it. You've not removed from it or added anything that is not part of it to it. Then truthfulness, you are expected to be truthful in your political communication, and you are expected to what? To pass your message in a way that make the desired change and impact. I'm sounding this because when you involve in advocacy, is a form of political communication. We've seen some people who say they are advocates and they go ahead maybe to collect money from one political party and be saying some things that do not exist. So when you involve yourself in that, you can easily get into trouble, because if your content and your advocacy are not being exact, are not being full of truth, then when you are called to come approve what you are saying, you will run into problems. So that is why political communication and advocacy require exactness, truthfulness, and you passing the message to make the desired change and impact. So what are required? The requirement for you to have pure and accurate political communication advocacy is that from day one, you must set clear objectives that you want to achieve. And then, I talks about the need for you to understand data collection and analysis. So you need the data, and then you need analytics or infographics. For you not to, if you don't understand how to go about data, there are open data sources that I've mentioned. You can leverage on their content for you to do your advocacy. That is allowed. Then the knowledge of the audience that you want to engage, you must understand your audience. So if you are going to engage a particular agency of government, you must understand who and who are in that organization, and what is their antecedent, what is their level of knowledge, what are the things that they might ask me for if I get there. You need to prepare ahead and have the knowledge of who and who you are going to be engaging or addressing in your political communication and advocacy. Then the appropriateness of your language is also very important. You cannot get into an agency and be addressing a DG as this man. That is not possible. You cannot say this man. For instance, if you are going to an advocacy meeting with a DG of an agency or a director of an agency, so you need to learn corporate words that are expected of an advocate when they involve in advocacy. So you need to also know that content is very important, and you must make them short, specific, and to the point as possible. And this always go back to the rule of that we call KISS rule, keeping it short and simple. I think with this few points of mine, I've been able to discuss this topic, and I expect that I've been able to add to your knowledge in terms of tools and techniques that are needed for institutional accountability in Nigeria. Thank you very much. And I expect at this level, maybe there will be a few questions that we'll be able to address before we call it a day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Daisy, for that wonderful presentation. We just from the participants quickly before going to the next session, which is a breakout session where we'll have different participants going to different rooms to have a short conversation on the topic of today. So if you have a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask. Okay, I will assume that the silence means that our participants do not have any question.
I have a question. Are you clear? My question goes like this.
Say first.
So, yeah, for leadership, in terms of leadership in the institution, and the leader able to enjoy himself, that is his own personal identity. I've had issues in several institutions where the leaders cannot give their clear identity in terms of each task, the selfish interest, and then to maintain a position that the leader be shifted for others to occupy. So in this aspect, what are the measures that must be taken to do away with such attitudes so that transparency will be in our organization? That's my question.
Please, can the anchor help me to reframe that question? I didn't hear him well. His voice was just breaking.
I didn't get the question clear either. Please say first. Can you go over the question?
Can you write it on the chat?
Yes, that would be better. Type
Okay,
it
I'm
out if
coming
you can.
again.
Okay.
For the sake of transparency in our own institutions, I've encountered situations where leadership precisely, those in position of leadership, because they don't want to retire, they don't want to be shifted away from the positions they have occupied for others to take over. And there is this kind of, should I say, reclaiming of their own age, place of such. So in this situation, how are we going to handle it so that better transparency, because leadership is first of all with one's identity. That's our question.
Okay, yeah, your voice is still not clear, but I think I get a bit idea of what you're trying to ask. So when it comes to institutional accountability, you as a leader, if you are leading one, if you are leading an institution, your institution, we have policies and we have law that is guiding your own institutions. So for you to display that the organization you are leading is accountable, is to ensure that you follow the provisions of the policies that you have in place in the organization for everyone to follow. That is how to practice accountability. And I talked about this when I was talking about the tools and techniques that you can use in your advocacy for accountability. That there are laws, there are policies, which are the tools that you can use for accountability when you are demanding such from anyone or from any organization. So they have their law, they have their policy that says this is how this should be done. So for them to now say, or for the organization to say that is accountable, it means that it needs to follow the provisions of that policy that says this must be done this way, this must be handled this way. So any deviation from such provision is lack of accountability, or the strict following of such provisions are accountability practices. And that is what we are emphasizing for public institutions in Nigeria. If the law that set up the institution, it says that for them to have a project cited in a community, for instance, they need to engage the people in the community. So if the institution is now doing a project in a community A and they do not involve the citizens, it means they've gone against their own practices or their own law that set them up. So for any person in that community to take that up, you need to leverage that particular provision in the law or in the policy of the organization you want to hold accountable. So accountability is not only when you are demanding for the release of money or how government institutions have used the money released to them by government. It also has to do with the laws and the policies in the organization to ensure that everything runs well to serve the people as it's supposed to be. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Is there any other questions? Is there any other participant with a question concerning the presentation made? I guess someone unmuted themselves just now. Okay, Patience, do you have a question? Okay, seems it's not actually a question that Patience has. If there are no questions, then we have successfully come to this session and we will be closing. We appreciate very much your efforts in
Hello?
being present in this program. Yes. Panama, do you have
Not really a question per se, but I just want to appreciate our facilitator on this particular session because it has been an interesting one, especially when they dropped the slide, and I was following it. It's part of what I've been yearning for. I just want to appreciate him for this this session. He has done a wonderful work, and I really appreciate it for the time he has taken to explain each of the slide, and I'm grateful. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Barnabas. I think
Hello, Joseph, can you hear me?
yes, I can, ma.
All right. So I just want to appreciate Mr. Daisi in the same vein. Sir, we really appreciate your patience and your understanding. It was really we're behind schedule and you were patient enough to wait and you took your time to go through the session. So for that we're grateful, thankful, and even though we started off on, I would say, a wrong foot, we're looking to more collaborations in the future with Tomat. And please, well done on what we do. Actually, I've been following your work with Tomat Foundation and the other establishments, and you've been doing really great. I'm a huge fan, and thank you so much for everything. So we'll be reaching out subsequently, but that'll be my conversation with you anyway. Just a lot of thanks. And thanks to our participants for today. We apologize for the itches and apologize for starting late, but as you know, it was due to network issues. We had planned to start right on time, everything was set, but things happen. So just prepare for tomorrow's sessions. Tomorrow will be much more engaging. If you enjoy today's session, anticipate tomorrow's one because we are fully prepared to, leave you fully packed and educated by the end of the day's camp. So just be active on the WhatsApp group on the next activities for today, preparation for tomorrow and third Saturday. So bye everyone, and thank you for being present.
All right, bye everyone, and thank you for thanking me for joining you guys. I'm grateful for the invitation. I also want to encourage participants to follow me, Facebook on X, as well as Promad for also interventions that we are doing around social accountability, institutional accountability, and participatory governance for opportunities that you can also get. So thank you for, thanks to your foundation for this great work, because education about civic activities or civic empowerment is very important to good governance in Nigeria. So thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Please, can we carry out a quick activity before everybody leaves the call? We would like to take a screenshot of this session. So if you can possibly just turn on your camera if you are in a position where you can turn it on. So I'll quickly just take a shot. A virtual shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I will not on my camera. Oh, yeah, you NYC cloth. Oh, my camera slam with them. Oh,
Okay. Okay, I've done that. Thank you very much for joining the session. And thank you for turning on your camera. I've come to the end of today's session. Thank you very, very much. Hello, Joshua, Patience, and Barnabas. We are done. You may zip the call. Hello, ma.
Yes. Okay.
I don't know. Can you?
I don't. Noble Africa Foundation is the person that can end the call. I don't know why. That should be Larry.
Yes.
You can just leave the call, no problem. Let me try to get across to you because
All right.
yeah, don't finish the work. Clubhouse. Network. This one no good normally. Now these people only say that you do network. Top right. I think the network people do. It isn't by luck that but the money. Even by luck Yeah. Good afternoon. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly. I don't know.
Hi, Swamba.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so what's up?
I'm good. How far?
The session has ended now. And nobody stopped the
Yes,
recording.
ma'am.